Welcome back to ABCGH Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the fascinating possibility that has Port Charles enthusiasts buzzing with anticipation. Could Morgan Corinthos be making his dramatic return to the canvas after years of presumed death? The lingering question is Morgan coming back. Have you found yourself immersed in the daily drama of Port Charles lately? If so, you've likely noticed the subtle breadcrumbs the writers appear to be dropping regarding one of the show's most tragic character departures. The question on everyone's lips, are we witnessing the early stages of Morgan Corinthos' resurrection? The speculation has ignited passionate debates across social media platforms, with viewers dissecting every potential clue with detective-like precision. The possibility of Morgan's return represents more than just another soap opera resurrection. It would fundamentally alter the emotional landscape for multiple core families in Port Charles. For the Corinthos clan especially, Morgan's reappearance would trigger an avalanche of complex emotions, joy mingled with betrayal, relief shadowed by questions about where he's been all these years. The ripple effects would extend to characters like Ava Jerome, whose actions contributed to Morgan's mental state before his death, and Kiki Jerome, who shared a complicated romantic history with him. Not every viewer is convinced these hints point toward an imminent return, however. A substantial contingent of fans believes the recent references serve purely symbolic purposes, reinforcing Sonny's protective instincts toward his remaining family members. They argue that the lingering camera shot on Morgan's photograph simply emphasizes the devastating losses Sonny has already endured, fueling his determination to prevent further tragedy. This perspective sees the references as thematic reinforcement rather than foreshadowing. Only time will reveal whether these breadcrumbs lead to Morgan's triumphant return or merely serve as poignant reminders of the past. Either way, the speculation itself demonstrates the enduring impact this character has had on the General Hospital landscape years after his presumed demise. The mysterious Solisky connection. The introduction of the enigmatic figure known alternately as Zelinsky or Solisky has added another layer of intrigue to this unfolding mystery. According to information Brick recently delivered to Sonny, this shadowy operative can only be contacted through the labyrinthine channels of the dark web, suggesting connections to a clandestine underworld that operates beyond conventional reach. His current location in Toronto places him tantalizingly close to Port Charles, yet far enough away to maintain a strategic distance. What makes this development particularly compelling is the timing of its revelation, coming immediately before the camera's deliberate focus on Morgan's photograph. This juxtaposition has led some astute viewers to theorize that Solisky might hold crucial information about Morgan's fate, or perhaps even played a direct role in orchestrating his disappearance. Could this mysterious figure have extracted Morgan from the exploding vehicle moments before detonation? Might he have been responsible for rehabilitating an injured Morgan and establishing him with a new identity? The dangerous reputation that precedes Solisky aligns perfectly with the type of character who might possess both the skills and connections necessary to fake a death and create a new life for someone needing to disappear. His apparent connection to Valentin Cassadine adds another fascinating dimension, as Valentin has demonstrated both the resources and willingness to orchestrate elaborate deceptions when it serves his purposes. Sonny and Jason's imminent journey to Toronto could potentially bring them face to face not only with Solisky but with revelations that could shatter their understanding of past events. The prospect of this confrontation carries enormous dramatic potential, regardless of whether it leads directly to Morgan or simply provides another piece in the puzzle of his possible survival. Sonny's protective instincts triggered. The recent episode showcased Sonny Corinthos at his most quintessential Midas, a father determined to protect his family at any cost. Despite grappling with significant health challenges that have left him more vulnerable than usual, Sonny's resolve remains undiminished when it comes to eliminating threats against his loved ones. His declaration, "I won't let him or anyone else come after my family again," delivered while brandishing his firearm, encapsulates the unwavering determination that has defined his character for decades. Jason Morgan's apprehension about Sonny making the journey to Toronto speaks volumes about the current state of Sonny's health. For Jason to express concern about Sonny's capability to handle such a mission indicates the severity of the situation, as Jason has historically shown complete confidence in Sonny's abilities. This dynamic shift suggests that Sonny may be pushing himself beyond reasonable limits, driven by a combination of paternal instinct and possibly guilt over past failures to protect his children. The recent bombing at Sonny's penthouse that endangered Michael has clearly reactivated trauma associated with Morgan's death. The parallels between these incidents, both involving explosives targeting Sonny's family, have likely intensified his emotional response. For Sonny, this isn't simply about neutralizing a current threat, It's about preventing history from repeating itself in the most devastating way possible. Sonny's deteriorating health condition adds a compelling layer of urgency to this storyline. If Morgan is indeed alive, the question becomes whether Sonny will live long enough to experience the reunion he's unknowingly seeking. This creates a poignant race against time that could drive the narrative forward with increasing intensity in the coming weeks. Recent nods to Morgan's memory. The photograph that captured viewers' attention isn't the only recent reference to Morgan on the canvas. In a particularly heated confrontation, Sonny explicitly blamed Ava Jerome for Morgan's death, reopening old wounds and reminding audiences of the complex circumstances surrounding that tragedy. This deliberate invocation of Morgan's memory, combined with the lingering camera shot on his photograph, suggests a coordinated effort by the writers to reintegrate his presence into the current storytelling. These references serve multiple narrative purposes simultaneously. They refresh newer viewers' awareness of this significant character from the show's history, ensuring that any potential return would resonate with the entire audience. They also re-establish the emotional stakes associated with Morgan for longtime viewers, priming them for the powerful reactions that would inevitably follow a revelation about his fate. The timing of these references coincides with significant shifts in the show's cast dynamics, particularly Chad Duell's recent departure from the role of Morgan Corinthos. This convergence has led some to speculate that Morgan's potential return could be designed to fill the emotional void left by Michael's absence, maintaining the crucial father-son dynamic that has been central to Sonny's character development throughout the years. Whether intentional foreshadowing or simply thematic reinforcement, these nods to Morgan have successfully reignited interest in a character whose presence continues to haunt Port Charles years after his presumed death. They demonstrate the enduring impact of well-crafted character exits, which can continue to generate storytelling possibilities long after the character has left the canvas. The WSB theory, a plausible explanation? Among the most intriguing theories circulating within the General Hospital community is the possibility that Jack Brennan might have recruited Morgan for the World Security Bureau following his death. This speculation gains credibility when considered alongside Jocelyn Jack's current WSB training arc, potentially setting the stage for a dramatic reunion between step-siblings who once shared a close bond. The WSB has a well-established history within the General Hospital universe of orchestrating elaborate deceptions, including faked deaths when recruiting valuable assets. Morgan's military school background would have provided him with foundational skills that the WSB could build upon, transforming him into an effective operative. Additionally, his presumed death would have created the perfect cover for his transition into clandestine work, allowing him to operate without endangering his family through continued connection. If this theory proves accurate, it would explain several puzzling elements surrounding Morgan's death. The absence of definitive remains following the explosion could be attributed to a carefully orchestrated extraction rather than complete obliteration. The occasional ghostly appearances Morgan has made over the years could be recontextualized as moments when he was actually present in Port Charles on covert assignments, briefly revealing himself to family members before disappearing again. Jocelyn's current WSB storyline creates a natural narrative bridge for reintroducing Morgan. As she advances in her training, she could potentially gain access to classified information that leads her to discover her stepbrother's secret existence. Alternatively, their paths might cross during a training exercise or mission, creating a moment of shocking recognition that forces both characters to reconsider their understanding of family loyalty versus professional obligation. Morgan's character history and impact. As the first biological child born to Sonny and Carly Corinthos, Morgan occupies a unique position in the show's generational landscape. His character journey has been marked by significant recasts over the years, with Brian Craig's portrayal representing the most developed and nuanced iteration. Craig brought depth to Morgan's struggles with bipolar disorder, creating a poignant parallel with his father Sonny's own mental health challenges. Morgan's relationships extended beyond his immediate family to create meaningful connections throughout Port Charles. His romantic entanglements with Kiki Jerome and later Ava Jerome generated substantial drama, particularly when his medication was tampered with, exacerbating his bipolar symptoms. These relationships established Morgan as more than simply Sonny and Carly's son, giving him independent storyline significance that would make his potential return particularly impactful. Even in presumed death, Morgan's influence has continued to reverberate through Port Charles. His absence has been a defining aspect of Sonny and Carly's co-parenting relationship, creating a shared grief that has occasionally united them despite other conflicts. For characters like Ava, Morgan represents a profound regret and source of guilt that has influenced her subsequent character development. The decision to potentially resurrect Morgan would not be taken lightly by the show's creative team, given the emotional investment viewers have in his tragic fate. If executed thoughtfully, however, such a return could generate compelling storytelling possibilities that honor both the character's history and the show's commitment to unexpected twists that keep audiences engaged. The symbolic interpretation. Not all viewers interpret the recent Morgan references as foreshadowing his return. A substantial perspective within the fan community views these moments as purely symbolic, designed to emphasize Sonny's protective instincts toward his remaining family members. According to this interpretation, the lingering shot on Morgan's photograph serves as a poignant reminder of what Sonny has already lost, intensifying his determination to prevent further tragedy. This symbolic reading gains credibility when considering the narrative function of grief in Sonny's character development. Morgan's death represented a pivotal moment that fundamentally altered Sonny's approach to both his business and family relationships. Periodic reminders of this loss reinforce the stakes of Sonny's current decisions, particularly as he faces health challenges that may compromise his ability to protect his loved ones. The photograph featuring both Morgan and Michael carries additional symbolic weight following Chad Duell's departure from the role of Michael. It visually represents the gradual dissolution of Sonny's immediate family circle, with both sons now absent from his daily life. This interpretation sees the camera's focus not as foreshadowing, but as elegiac milosh, a moment of reflection on what has been lost rather than what might be regained. Whether foreshadowing or symbolism, these references demonstrate the writer's understanding of General Hospital's rich history and their commitment to maintaining emotional continuity across years of storytelling. By keeping Morgan's memory alive, they honor the character's significance while creating space for whatever narrative direction they ultimately choose to pursue. As devoted followers of Port Charles' ever-evolving drama, we can only continue watching with anticipation as this storyline unfolds. Will Morgan Corinthos emerge from the shadows to reclaim his place in his family's life, or will his memory continue to serve as a poignant reminder of past tragedy? Whatever the outcome, the speculation itself demonstrates the enduring power of well-crafted character arcs to captivate audiences years after their apparent conclusion. The coming weeks promise to reveal whether Sonny and Jason's Toronto mission will bring them face-to-face with the mysterious Solisky, whether that confrontation might lead to revelations that could forever change the Corinthos family legacy. Until then, the possibility of Morgan's return remains one of General Hospital's most tantalizing unresolved questions. Next, we will learn about the brewing sisterly alliance that could spell disaster for one of Port Charles' most notorious residents. The Davis girls might be reuniting with vengeance on their minds, and Ava Jerome should be watching her back more carefully than ever. Sisterly bonds and protective instincts. Will Molly Lansing Davis ultimately become her sister's keeper in this dangerous game of revenge? This question looms large over Port Charles as the complex relationship between the Davis sisters enters uncharted territory. Throughout their tumultuous history, Molly has often played the role of the rational, level-headed counterbalance to Christina's impulsive nature. Even during their most contentious disagreements, an undercurrent of familial loyalty has always remained, bubbling beneath the surface of their interactions like a dormant volcano waiting to erupt. Molly's natural inclination toward justice rather than vengeance has historically placed her in opposition to Christina's more emotionally driven approaches to conflict resolution. Her legal training has reinforced this tendency, instilling in her a deep respect for procedural fairness and the rule of law. Under normal circumstances, the idea of Molly participating in an extrajudicial vendetta would seem entirely out of character, a line she would never consider crossing, regardless of provocation. However, these are far from normal circumstances for the younger Davis sister. The devastating collapse of her relationship with TJ Ashford has shattered her carefully constructed life plan, leaving her adrift in unfamiliar emotional waters. The loss of their surrogacy dreams represented more than just a delayed path to parenthood. It symbolized the evaporation of the future Molly had envisioned for herself since establishing their domestic partnership. This profound grief has created hairline fractures in her typically solid moral foundation. Even if Molly ultimately rejects direct participation in Christina's vengeful schemes, her protective instincts toward her sister might manifest in more subtle ways. Perhaps she'll position herself on the periphery of the situation, maintaining plausible deniability while secretly monitoring Christina's actions to prevent her from crossing irreversible lines. This halfway approach would allow Molly to preserve her ethical standards while still honoring the unbreakable bond of sisterhood that connects them. The psychological complexity of Molly's position creates fascinating dramatic potential. She might find herself caught in an internal tug-of-war between her legal ethics and her desire to support her sister during a time when their relationship could finally heal after years of strain. This internal conflict could provide viewers with a nuanced exploration of how grief and loyalty can challenge even the most principled characters' moral boundaries. Christina's recruitment strategy. General Hospital spoilers indicate that Christina Corinthos Davis is actively plotting to pull her vulnerable sister into her vengeful orbit. With the calculated precision of a master manipulator, Christina recognizes that Molly's current emotional devastation creates the perfect opportunity to recruit her as an ally in the war against Ava Jerome. The timing couldn't be more advantageous from Christina's perspective. Molly's defenses are down, her judgment clouded by grief, and her need for connection at an all-time high. Christina's recruitment pitch will likely be crafted with surgical precision, designed to appeal to Molly's current emotional vulnerabilities while simultaneously framing their potential alliance as a way to rebuild their fractured sisterly bond. "Ava's hurt us all, Mole. Let's make her pay together" might be just the beginning of a carefully orchestrated campaign to convince Molly that joining forces against a common enemy represents their best chance at healing their relationship. The manipulative genius of Christina's approach lies in its dual appeal. It offers Molly both an outlet for her unprocessed grief and a path toward reconnection with her sister. By positioning their potential collaboration against Ava as a sisterly bonding activity, Christina transforms something destructive into something that appears constructively familial. This framing makes it significantly more difficult for Molly to reject the proposal outright, as doing so might seem like rejecting Christina herself during a rare moment of offered closeness. Christina understands that Molly's legal expertise represents an invaluable asset in any campaign against Ava. While Christina brings passion, determination, and street smarts to the table, Molly's analytical mind and understanding of legal vulnerabilities could elevate their vendetta from petty harassment to sophisticated psychological warfare. Together, they could identify and exploit weaknesses in Ava's business dealings, personal relationships, and legal standing that neither could effectively target alone. The calculated nature of Christina's recruitment efforts reveals her growing sophistication as a strategist. Unlike her previous impulsive attacks against perceived enemies, this approach demonstrates patience, planning, and psychological insight. She's no longer the hot-headed daughter of Sonny Corinthos acting on pure emotion. She's becoming a formidable player in Port Charles's never-ending game of power and retribution. Molly's vulnerable state. The emotional devastation currently engulfing Molly Lansing Davis has transformed her from one of Port Charles' most stable residents into a psychological wildcard. The simultaneous collapse of her relationship with TJ Ashford and their shared surrogacy dreams has created a perfect storm of grief, disillusionment, and identity crisis. For a woman who has always defined herself through her relationships and future plans, this dual loss represents nothing short of an existential catastrophe. Molly's current emotional state bears all the hallmarks of profound grief, disorientation, unpredictability, and a desperate search for meaning amid chaos. Her typically rational decision-making process has been compromised by the overwhelming nature of her losses, leaving her susceptible to influences she would normally recognize as problematic. The solid foundation upon which she built her life has crumbled beneath her feet, forcing her to question everything she once held as certain. The dissolution of her domestic partnership with TJ carries particularly devastating implications for Molly's sense of self. Unlike conventional marriages that ended in divorce, their partnership represented a deliberate choice to forge their own path outside traditional institutions. Its failure, therefore, challenges not just her relationship status, but her entire philosophical approach to life and commitment. This deeper layer of loss compounds her grief, making her even more vulnerable to Christina's manipulative overtures. Perhaps most significantly, Molly currently exists in an emotional vacuum where her usual support systems have been compromised. With TJ gone and her mother Alexis potentially distracted by her own challenges, Molly lacks the stabilizing influences that might otherwise help her navigate this difficult period. This isolation creates the perfect conditions for Christina to position herself as Molly's primary emotional support, a role that comes with significant influence over her decision-making. The psychological concept of rock bottom proves particularly relevant to understanding Molly's current vulnerability. When someone believes they have nothing left to lose, their risk assessment changes dramatically. Actions that would previously have seemed unthinkably reckless might suddenly appear reasonable or even necessary. This altered perspective makes Molly dangerously receptive to Christina's vengeful propositions, as the potential consequences seem insignificant compared to the emotional devastation she's already experiencing. The vendetta against Ava intensifies. Christina Corinthos Davis has locked her vengeful sights on Ava Jerome with renewed intensity following what she perceived as an unforgivable display of callousness. The incident that reignited this dormant feud occurred when Ava stood by, seemingly unmoved, as Sonny Corinthos experienced a cardiac episode that left him collapsed on the floor, clutching his chest in evident distress. This moment crystallized everything Christina has always believed about Ava's fundamental lack of humanity, transforming a simmering resentment into a full-blown vendetta. The timing of this incident proved particularly inflammatory for Christina, who had been making tentative progress toward letting go of her animosity toward Ava. This regression to active hatred demonstrates the fragility of emotional progress in Port Charles, where old wounds can be reopened with devastating efficiency by a single thoughtless action. For Christina, Ava's apparent indifference to Sonny's suffering represented not just a momentary lapse in compassion, but confirmation of her irredeemable character. Christina's approach to destroying Ava appears multifaceted and comprehensive. Rather than focusing on a single avenue of attack, she seems determined to dismantle every aspect of Ava's carefully constructed life. This might include exposing damaging secrets from Ava's past, systematically turning her allies against her through strategic information sharing, undermining her business interests, and generally creating an atmosphere of constant psychological pressure. The comprehensive nature of this campaign suggests Christina has been mentally cataloging Ava's vulnerabilities for years, waiting for the right moment to exploit them. The intensity of Christina's commitment to this vendetta raises concerning questions about her psychological well-being. Her fixation on destroying Ava has taken on qualities of obsession, potentially blinding her to the collateral damage her actions might cause, including harm to her own interests and relationships. The single-minded focus represents a regression to earlier, more self-destructive patterns of behavior that Christina has worked hard to overcome in recent years. Sonny's cardiac episode serves as both catalyst and justification for Christina's renewed campaign against Ava. By framing her vendetta as righteous retribution for Ava's callousness toward her father, Christina can present her actions as defensible or even noble, rather than acknowledging their fundamentally vindictive nature. This self-justification allows her to pursue destruction while maintaining a positive self-image, a psychological mechanism that enables escalating aggression without corresponding guilt. The potential alliance takes shape. A dangerous alliance may be taking shape in Port Charles as Christina Corinthos Davis actively works to recruit her sister Molly into her vendetta against Ava Jerome. This potential partnership represents a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict, combining Christina's passionate determination with Molly's analytical intelligence in a potentially devastating combination that could leave Ava vulnerable on multiple fronts simultaneously. The complementary skill sets of the Davis sisters make their potential alliance particularly threatening. Christina brings street smarts, social connections throughout Port Charles, and an intimate understanding of the town's power dynamics inherited from both her father Sonny and mother Alexis. Molly contributes legal expertise, methodical planning abilities, and a reputation for integrity that could provide their actions with a veneer of legitimacy. Together, they could identify and exploit vulnerabilities in Ava's defenses that neither would recognize independently. This emerging sisterly collaboration represents a significant shift in the power dynamics of Port Charles. The Davis women have historically operated as independent agents with occasionally conflicting agendas, their considerable collective potential fragmented by personal differences and competing loyalties. A united front between even two members of this formidable family would create a new power center capable of challenging established players like Ava, who has traditionally maintained her position through careful management of individual threats. The psychological implications of this alliance extend beyond its practical impact on Ava. For Christina and Molly, collaboration against a common enemy offers a path to healing their fractured relationship through shared purpose and mutual support. The emotional satisfaction of working together after years of distance might prove as compelling as the vengeance itself, potentially cementing their partnership even if their initial plans against Ava encounter obstacles. From a strategic perspective, Christina's decision to seek an ally rather than pursuing vengeance independently demonstrates growing maturity in her approach to conflict. She recognizes both the magnitude of the challenge Ava represents and the limitations of her individual capabilities. This self-awareness represents significant personal growth for Christina, who has historically launched impulsive solo attacks against perceived enemies without adequate preparation or support. Christina's Reignited fury, The simmering resentment Christina Corinthos Davis harbored toward Ava Jerome had been gradually subsiding, a slow cooling of hostilities that suggested the possibility of peaceful coexistence in Port Charles's complicated social landscape. This tentative progress toward détente, however, evaporated instantly when Christina witnessed Ava's apparent callousness during Sonny's cardiac episode. That single moment of perceived heartlessness reignited Christina's fury with explosive intensity, transforming dormant animosity into active hatred. Christina's reaction to this incident reveals the depth of her emotional investment in her father's well-being, despite their occasionally contentious relationship. Sonny represents a complicated figure in Christina's life, simultaneously a source of security, frustration, pride, and disappointment. Regardless of their periodic conflicts, her fundamental loyalty remains unshakable, particularly when his vulnerability becomes apparent. Ava's failure to respond compassionately to Sonny's medical crisis therefore registered as an unforgivable transgression against Christina's core values. The psychological mechanism underlying Christina's renewed hostility involves what therapists might identify as confirmation bias, the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of existing beliefs. Christina has long viewed Ava as fundamentally heartless and manipulative. Witnessing her apparent indifference during Sonny's distress simply confirmed this pre-existing assessment. This reinforcement of her negative perception eliminated any progress toward forgiveness that might have been developing, resetting their relationship to its most antagonistic baseline. Christina's emotional response to this incident demonstrates the enduring power of family loyalty in Port Charles. Despite the Corinthos family's complicated internal dynamics and frequent conflicts, they consistently unite against external threats or perceived disrespect. This pattern of circling the wagons during crisis represents one of the family's defining characteristics, a trait Christina has internalized despite her occasional rebellions against her father's authority and lifestyle. The intensity of Christina's renewed determination to destroy Ava suggests that her previous restraint may have been more strategic than genuine. Perhaps she was simply waiting for the right provocation to justify resuming hostilities, subconsciously seeking permission to unleash the vindictive impulses she had temporarily suppressed. This interpretation casts her current campaign not as a new development, but as the continuation of a long-standing vendetta that had been temporarily paused rather than abandoned. The transformation in Christina's demeanor following this incident has been noted by multiple Port Charles residents. Her usual animated expressiveness has given way to a more focused intensity, her social interactions now underscored by a calculating quality previously absent. This shift signals to those who know her well that Christina has entered a dangerous phase where her typically impulsive nature has been channeled into methodical determination, a combination that makes her significantly more threatening than during her more volatile periods. As the Davis sisters potentially unite against a common enemy, Port Charles braces for the fallout of this intensifying conflict. Ava Jerome's considerable resources and survival instincts will be tested against the combined intelligence, determination, and legal acumen of Christina and potentially Molly. The resulting power struggle promises to reshape alliances throughout town while creating collateral damage that extends far beyond the primary participants. Whether Molly ultimately succumbs to her sister's manipulative recruitment efforts or maintains her ethical boundaries remains to be seen. Her decision will not only determine the effectiveness of Christina's vendetta, but potentially set the course for her own character development in the coming months. As grief and loyalty pull her in one direction while her principles tug in another, Molly faces a defining choice that will reveal which aspects of her identity prove most resilient during her darkest hour. For viewers of ABC's General Hospital, this unfolding drama offers a fascinating exploration of how family loyalty, personal vendetta, and ethical boundaries intersect in the pressure cooker environment of Port Charles. As always, the true entertainment value lies not just in discovering what happens next, but in understanding the complex psychological motivations driving these beloved characters toward their inevitable confrontations.